Hello and welcome to Unacademy IAS, a one stop destination for all the English medium civil services aspirants. Welcome to another session of Economy This Week, wherein we take up important economy related articles from different newspapers and analyze these particular articles. In this session, I'll be covering these topics, and the time period that I'll be covering is from the 31st July to the 6th August 2025. Let's begin the discussion. Before that, two very important announcements. First one, a lot of you keep on asking me for the PPT that I'm using in the session as well as the notes of the articles that I'm covering in the session. All you need to do is scan this QR code, join my Telegram channel, and after the session is over, and once it is uploaded in the Telegram, I will be uploading these two documents on my Telegram channel. Download it and more importantly, read it and use it for revision. Second very important announcement is a lot of you I know are preparing for the Civil Services Examination 2026 and 2027. Just ensure that you will have a very good comprehensive coverage of the static portion, updation with the current affairs, sufficient number of prelims as well as mains test series to evaluate your preparation and change the strategy to ace the civil services examination. All of this is available once you enroll into our courses priced at 22,999. And if you use the code IAS English, you will also get an extension of one additional month free of cost. Now let me start the discussion here. The first article, RBI returning $5 billion in the Forex swap today. What are the important points? Let's start discussing now. The first very important point, Reserve Bank of India plays a very important role in the Forex market. That is essentially the exchange rate for rupee versus dollar. From post 1993, essentially we have implemented a new type of a system where Reserve Bank of India plays a very important role in stabilizing, I repeat, stabilizing the exchange rate of Indian rupee against the dollar. Although we simply say India follows a floating exchange rate, the exact term or the exact mechanism is the managed floating exchange rate, which simply means for majority period of the time we allow the market forces to determine the exchange rate. But whenever there is a sudden unreasonable appreciation or depreciation, Reserve Bank of India will intervene in the market to stabilize the exchange rate. For example, imagine there is a sudden depreciation. There is a sudden depreciation of Indian rupee. Why does the sudden depreciation of Indian rupee happen? Because there is a too much of supply of Indian rupee in the forex market. And when there is too much of a supply of Indian rupee, the demand for the dollar is increasing. The value of dollar goes upwards, that is, it appreciates. And on the other hand, because the supply of rupee is also very high, the value of rupee falls down, thereby experiencing depreciation in this kind of a exchange rate mechanism. Now, in this particular situation, what RBI does is it will start intervening in the market. And when I say RBI intervenes, please remember this, RBI doesn't fix the exchange rate. RBI simply stabilizes the exchange rate. How so? RBI will see that there is too much of supply of rupees. RBI will start purchasing the rupees and supplying the dollars. Is it okay? I'll repeat it again. RBI will see the market. In the market, what is happening? There is too much of a supply of a rupee and demand for dollar. So what RBI will do is, RBI will use the forex reserves, start selling dollar and purchasing rupees. This kind of an activity or operation conducted by Reserve Bank of India will help in stabilizing the exchange rate, that is rupee value against the dollar. Now some of you will be thinking, sir, what does RBI do if there is sudden appreciation of Indian rupee? Just think of this. If there is a sudden appreciation of Indian rupee, which means value of rupee is moving upwards against the dollar, it also means in the forex market there is a too much of supply of dollar and there is a demand for rupees, and that is the precise reason the value of rupee is going upwards against the dollar. What does RBI do? RBI will basically start doing exactly opposite to what is happening in the market. If there is too much supply of dollar, RBI will start purchasing dollars from the market. If there is too much of demand for rupees in the market, RBI in return will start supplying rupees in the market, thereby again stabilizing the value of rupee against the dollar. Now, in this context, that is the article which is discussing here, what is the important tool they are mentioning? They are mentioning a tool by the name of Forex swap. Forex swap. What is this concept of a Forex swap? What is the impact of it? Why does RBI do it? Let me explain this. In the Forex swap, essentially what happens is Reserve Bank of India will be entering into an agreement or basically a contract for a specific time period with a bank. Let's say here is RBI and here is a bank. And the kind of tool that is mentioned in the article is basically RBI has entered earlier dollar rupee buy sell swap. This is the kind of swap they have mentioned. That is RBI entering into these swaps earlier in the month of January. Part of this, that is the second transaction, is happening now in one such round of swaps conducted by RBI. A lot of you looking at earlier statements that I've given just now will be confused as to what is the part, what is a Forex swap. Let me explain this step by step. Under the Forex swap, RBI will enter into an agreement with the bank. And under this kind of a swap, what happens? There are two transactions, or they will simply say there are two legs, leg 1 and leg 2. In the transaction 1, I'll call this as T1. In the transaction 1, what RBI does? RBI will buy dollars from the bank and in return sell rupees to the bank. Everybody is okay? First transaction, RBI will buy dollar and whatever is the exchange rate, equivalent value of that rupees will be bought by RBI from bank. And when this is done, what is the impact do you think will be on the Forex market or the banking sector? Can I simply say RBI will buy dollars, means a supply of dollars from the market in the Forex market will go down, and RBI will sell rupees, supply of rupees to the market, that is liquidity in the market will start to move upwards. And this is done according to the requirement that RBI feels there is a need of taking out too much dollars which are present in the market. We should take the dollars out, and there is a requirement of liquidity and we will increase the liquidity. Now this is a first part of the transaction, and second part of the transaction. Let's say it is for 6 months, which is the case here. Let's say this is for 6 months. Once the 6 months duration is over, what does RBI do? Exactly opposite side of the transaction. Exactly the second part of the transaction, opposite. What RBI does now is, in the earlier step, it had purchased dollars from the bank. It will basically sell the same number of dollars to the bank. And in the transaction 1, it had purchased rupees from the bank. It has sold rupees to the bank. Now it will buy, right, the rupees from the bank. Now you just tell me, if RBI will conduct the second leg of the transaction, that is T2, I'm referring to T2. If RBI will conduct the second leg of the transaction today, don't you think as a result of this, the liquidity in the banking sector will go down? And that is exactly what is mentioned in the article here. The liquidity in the banking sector will go down by around 43,000 crore rupees. That is the precise reason why the article basically says, considering the situation in the banking sector. What is the situation in the banking sector? There is liquidity surplus currently. In fact, the same was actually mentioned by RBI Governor in the recent Monetary Policy Committee statement as well. There is a high amount of liquidity surplus in the banking sector. So when there is too much of liquidity surplus, RBI uses different tools to suck out, to reduce the liquidity from the banking sector. In this case, right, automatically by conducting the second leg of the transaction, a second part of the transaction, there will be huge amount of liquidity that will be taken out from the banking system. And as such, if you look at what is going to happen in the coming days, that is earlier, Reserve Bank of India reduced the cash reserve ratio. And please understand this, the cash reserve ratio that was done would be implemented in a phased manner, in a staggered manner. That is, on month to month basis or quarter to quarter basis, there is a reduction in the CRR by certain percentage rather than cutting the CRR by a full number in one shot. So when this is being done in a phased manner, there will be inclusion, or let's say there will be increase of liquidity in the banking sector. And that is a precise reason this kind of a swap, second leg of which will be implemented now, will take out liquidity, considering the liquidity again would be increasing in the coming months because of the phased reduction of cash reserve ratio. So these are certain very important points associated with the article here. Now let's have a look at an MCQ. How many of the following would lead to rupee depreciation? How many of the following, let's say, the activities or events will lead to rupee depreciation? First one, Federal Reserve cutting interest rates. Federal Reserve is the central banker of United States of America. If Federal Reserve will cut the interest rate, what is the impact of that on the Indian rupee? Some of you will say there is no relation whatsoever. There is a relation. That is, whenever interest rates in a particular country move upwards or downwards, they will either attract investments or they will push the investments out of the country. When Federal Reserve will cut the interest rates in USA will go down. The investors will not be preferring to invest in the USA market. Rather, they will take the money and start moving outside America, enter into emerging economies such as India. And when they invest in India, they'll bring lot of dollars into Indian market. They will be selling the dollars. They'll be purchasing the rupees. Demand for the rupees increases, and that leads to appreciation. Question is on depreciation. First one, incorrect. Higher prices of the crude oil. And the third one, higher current account deficit. Just think of this. If there is a higher price of the crude oil as well as higher current account deficit, does it not mean more dollars will be flowing out of India? You'll have to pay more dollars to the rest of the world. And when we have to pay more dollars to the rest of the world, it simply means I am selling rupees in the Forex market, supply of rupee increases, and this leads to depreciation of Indian rupee. So second and third are correct. Right option for this question will be option B. Only two of the above are leading to rupee depreciation. Let me go to the next article. The Supreme Court recalls May 2 verdict for Bhushan Steel liquidation. What is the issue here? Let me explain this. Let's go step by step here. There is a company, Jindal Steel. Right? Again, don't have to remember the full name, not required. There is a company, Jindal Steel. I'll call this as Company A. Now they bid for one more company under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, that is Bhushan Power and Steel Limited. I'll call the second company B. So Company A bid for Company B under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, and Committee of Creditors decided that the Company B will be sold to Company A for certain price. And this issue was taken up by Supreme Court of India. Initially, it went to the NCLAT, National Companies Law Appellate Tribunal. NCLAT ruled in the favor of Resolution Professional as well as the Company A, and later this case was taken up by Supreme Court of India in the month of May. It issued a judgment. It issued an order, and that particular judgment created certain instability in the whole process of insolvency and bankruptcy code system. What was the order? The order stated that the earlier acquisition of Company A of Company B, that is the Jindal Steel of Bhushan Steel, this acquisition should be not allowed. This should be negated, and that the second company, that is the Bhushan Steel, now must be liquidated. And this order created a lot of instability. It created, right, let's say certain kinds of doubts over the future process of companies being bid, companies being purchased under IBC. And now the Supreme Court of India has reviewed the earlier order issued in the month of May. Supreme Court now says there are a lot of factual data sets that were not considered earlier when the order was issued in the month of May. Hence, now the Supreme Court simply says this order will be negated. and this order will be basically repealed, and a new hearing will be held for this particular case in the coming months. This is basically the gist of what has happened regarding the two companies in the context of the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. Now, what is the problem here? Let's understand what is the issue. Why this kind of a order was issued earlier for liquidating the Bhushan Steel Company? What were the considerations undertaken? And what are the concepts associated with IBC that you need to understand in the context of this judgment? Let's start. There is a law called as Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. This the policy, or let's say this piece of legislation, has been implemented by the government since 2016. Since 2016, this has come into force. And what is the importance of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code? Unlike earlier situation where the insolvency provisions were there under different pieces of legislation or under different pieces of laws, there is a unified framework now. There is a unified framework. That is, whatever be the situation, if a borrower, if a borrower, that is a company or an individual, they are defaulting on the repayment, there has to be a systematic process that is followed for insolvency resolution. That is, the company has to be sold to a new buyer or the company has to be closed, that is, liquidation has to be done. All of that has been dictated under Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. But under IBC, there are certain very important points as well. That is, one, please remember, there is an expert who is appointed called as a resolution professional, RP. Resolution professional. What is the role of resolution professional? The RP has to ensure that the laws, or let's say the provisions, has to be properly maintained. The guidelines have to be implemented. The process has to be followed to the teeth so that there are no violations of any of the guidelines. He is the in charge of basically the process of conducting insolvency resolution. There is also Committee of Creditors, COC, Committee of Creditors. Committee of Creditors basically represents all the lenders, all the people. People here means basically the companies, all the lenders who are owed money by the company. The company will owe money to, let's say, banks from whom they have taken the loan. Company will owe money to operational creditors, that is those who have supplied, let's say, raw materials, those who have supplied certain inputs for the company which they have taken, and they are owing money. They have not repaid the money, they are still owing the money to this supplier. These are called as operational creditors. Now, the important point to note here is, in the Committee of Creditors, the creditors are present. But whenever you talk about, let's say, the power that is given to vote and decide what should we do with this company, that is, sell the company or close the company to recover the money, it is basically the financial creditors who are given the right to vote. It is these creditors who are given the right to vote. And whenever a company is sold, liquidated, etc., and money is recovered, between these kind of creditors, that is financial and operational creditor, the first preference is given to operational and then money is paid to the financial creditors. And all these are laid out in the guidelines. All of these are put in the guidelines. And one more very important point associated with the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code is that the whole process has to be conducted within 330 days. The whole process has to be conducted within 330 days. Now, what is the issue? Why the earlier judgment basically ordered liquidation of Bhushan Steel? Let me explain. The process was conducted. Finally, the decision was made by the Committee of Creditors to sell this company, that is a Bhushan Power and Steel Limited, to Jindal Steel. But it was seen that many of the guidelines, many of the provisions of the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code were violated in the process. And that is the precise reason in May, when the Supreme Court of India issued an order, the Supreme Court of India highlighted these kind of, let's say, violations. For example, the time period of 330 days was violated. No proper reasoning was provided as to why the time of 330 days, that is the threshold time period, was crossed in this particular process. It was sold to a company, money was received. The first access was given to financial creditors and then to operational creditors. which is again the violation of the provision of IBC. And whenever a company is sold to another company under IBC, the provision simply says you will have to make the payment, right? That is equity payment. You are purchasing ownership, you will have to make the payment and take over the ownership of the company whenever it is sold. But in this case, it was seen that the buyer had not paid the complete amount in the form of cash. Half of the amount was equity related payment, and half of them were issued in the form of non-convertible debentures. That is basically the guarantee of making a payment in the future. So Supreme Court of India looked at all of these issues and said this is a violation of many of the provisions. Hence, we will cancel the acquisition of the company, that is Bhushan Steel, by Jindal Steel. And I said this created ripples. This created a lot of concern in IBC. Why? Multiple companies are participating under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. Multiple companies' insolvency resolution is being conducted under IBC. Now, if these kind of judgments are issued where one company has already acquired another company, it's been more than 3 years. Acquisition is already completed, and this acquired company is a part of the new company. Now, these kind of orders, when they are issued, which are basically saying, let's nullify what was done 3 years ago, these kind of orders always will be a concerning outcome. These will create ripples, these will create concerns regarding what will happen to the outcomes of, let's say, right, many acquisitions which have been done in the past. What if Supreme Court of India will start cancelling these acquisitions after 10 years of acquisition, after 15 years of acquisition, etc.? So there were certain concerns raised regarding this order of, right, the month of May issued by the Supreme Court of India. Now this order was stayed, right, by the special bench of Supreme Court, and now the Supreme Court basically says it is going to recall the May 2nd verdict on Bhushan Steel, right, case, and this particular case now will be heard fresh, considering many other facts which were not earlier considered by the Supreme Court bench. So these are certain very important points associated with this article here. Please note down all of these particular points. And when I say note down, these are given in the handout. Please underline, remember these particular points. Let's solve a MCQ now. Consider the following statements regarding insolvency and bankruptcy code. The law prescribes a time-bound resolution. Yes, the law prescribes a time-bound resolution in 330 days. The IBC can be used only by the financial creditors to seek insolvency resolution. No. Whether it is a financial creditor or an operational creditor, doesn't matter. Both of them can approach NCLT and can seek insolvency resolution. Not available only for one type, it is available for all the types of creditors. Third, in the committee of creditors, both operational and financial creditors are allowed to vote. No, both of them are not allowed to vote. Only the financial creditors are allowed to vote. So out of three statements, only one of them is correct. Right option for this question will be option A. Only one statement is correct. Now let me go to the next article. RBI's Mule Hunter to be expanded to 15 to 20 banks. Now what is this concept of a Mule Hunter? Reserve Bank of India has multiple subsidiaries. What is a subsidiary? It is an entity owned by a parent company. For example, right, there is a subsidiary by the name of DICGC, very famous, again of Reserve Bank of India, Deposit Insurance Credit Guarantee Corporation, which is involved in providing insurance to the deposits collected by the banking units. In the same way, there is one more subsidiary of Reserve Bank of India, goes by the name of RBIH, Reserve Bank Innovation Hub. Lot of the technology, lot of tools which are used generally are associated with Reserve Bank of India's Innovation Hub. Now this RBIH earlier, that is last year in the month of December, announced something by the name of Mule Hunter.ai. Mule Hunter.ai. Now what would be the use of Mule Hunter.ai? Listen to me carefully. There are a lot of bank accounts which are classified as mule accounts. Right? What is a mule account? These accounts are generally opened by one person but operated by somebody else. And when the second person operates these accounts, it is not for the purposes of maintaining balance, nothing good. It is generally associated with laundering of money. And these kind of mule accounts are generally used for the purposes of laundering the money or transferring the money which has been accumulated by, let's say, conducting certain cyber fraud attacks, etc. So there are certain accounts which are opened, and basically in this case, a lot of times the people in whose name the accounts are opened, these are very innocent people. They do not understand for what purpose or the misuse that is being done using their accounts. Either they are coerced into this or they are paid certain amount of money, but in their name an account is opened and this account is misused. It is used for circulating money, that is money laundering. The money that is collected, accumulated through, let's say, cyber attacks, digital frauds, etc. These kind of monies are used to circulate or are circulated using these kind of accounts, mule accounts. In the past also, many times, right, let's say these kind of accounts have been identified and the banks have taken steps to close down these kind of bank accounts. But the fact of the matter remains that in case of India, the number of digital frauds on month to month basis are very high. The amount involved in these kind of digital frauds is also very high. Now the question arises, if a particular account is a mule account, how do you identify it, how do you restrict it, how do you close down these kind of accounts? For this purpose now, an artificial intelligence tool has been developed. AI tool by the name of Mule Hunter has been developed by RBIH. Now this particular tool will be observing, right, certain suspicious accounts, and it will be basically using certain language which has already been put in, that is basically codes which have been already provided. It will be observing, studying multiple number of bank accounts, and if it finds that certain accounts are suspicious accounts, in real time it will basically flash these accounts. Flash means provide the information regarding this account to the bank. And once this particular AI will flag these particular accounts, once it will flag these kinds of accounts, right, the bank will have a look at these kind of accounts. And if they find that these are mule accounts, such accounts shall be shut down. So one more reform that has been announced by Reserve Bank of India to address digital frauds, right, is basically the Mule Hunter AI. Once it was introduced, it was implemented in very few number of banks in India. 5 banks were covered so far. Now, the Reserve Bank of India simply says the Mule Hunter AI will be expanded to cover 15 to 20 more banks. This is an update associated with a step or a technology being used by Reserve Bank of India to control, right, let's say money laundering exercises or money laundering activities in India. Please make a note of this. Let's solve an MCQ. Consider the following statements regarding Mule Hunter AI. It has been developed by RBIH. Yes. Reserve Bank Innovation Hub. Absolutely true. Effective implementation will help curb money laundering as well as digital frauds. Yes, that is also absolutely true. Both of the statements I've taken from the website of mulehunter.ai. And so both of the statements are true. Right option for this particular question will be option C, both. Let me go forward to the next article now. The direct benefit transfer has helped deactivate 4.08 crore fake inactive LPG connections. This particular statement has been given by Minister Puri. Now, what are the important points or the concepts which are discussed in the article that you need to remember? The government of India earlier, in a very controlled way, in a pilot way, implemented the concept called as a direct benefit transfer. Direct benefit transfer. Now, this was implemented in 2013. Later on, it was expanded and implemented throughout India. And today, more than 300 schemes, I repeat, more than 300 schemes are covered under the direct benefit transfer. What is the use of this direct benefit transfer? Listen to me very carefully. A lot of you get confused between what is a direct benefit transfer and a direct subsidy. Both are slightly different. Please be very, very careful. Direct benefit transfer and the direct subsidy. What is essentially the concept of a direct benefit transfer and a direct subsidy? In case of direct subsidies, the subsidy is transferred, is given to the beneficiary. The subsidy is given to beneficiary, and the beneficiary will use the subsidy to purchase goods or services in the market. For example, LPG. In case of LPG subsidy, the government transfers the subsidy amount to the bank account of the beneficiary, and the beneficiary will be purchasing the LPG cylinder, and the price that is paid is excluding the subsidy, because the subsidy I'm going to receive into my bank account. That is direct subsidy. Whereas a direct benefit transfer is a program of the government. It is a program of the government under which the various initiatives of the government, that is the subsidy schemes of the government, under which either cash component is provided, that is cash subsidies are provided, or kind subsidies are provided. These kind of schemes, totaling more than 300 such schemes, are covered under the DBT program. Is it okay? DBT is a program. Direct subsidy is a type of a subsidy. There are different types of subsidies, by the way. Under the classification of subsidy, there is one classification, direct, indirect. There is another classification, universal, targeted. There is a third classification, implicit, explicit. Right? So different classifications of subsidies, right, are there. You should know all of them. Now come to the point here. What is the use of a direct benefit transfer? The direct benefit transfer has been used by the government to provide the subsidies in the form of a cash or in the form of a kind. But more importantly, the direct benefit transfer is used to correctly identify the beneficiary. Please remember, to identify the right beneficiary who is supposed to receive the subsidy, I will be identifying the right beneficiary and transferring the amount, right, either in the form of a cash or in the form of a kind. If it is in the form of a cash, transferring the amount directly into the bank account of the beneficiaries. And that is a precise reason currently the government of India has also stated that they will undertake an exercise where, right, basically they are going to conduct let's say an exercise where they are going to the households, they are basically verifying the beneficiaries. They are verifying the beneficiaries. They are checking whether Aadhaar is available for a beneficiary or not. Because please understand, from the next year, that is financial year 26, we are going to implement, or we are going to enter into the next cycle of finance commission. That is after this 15th finance commission, which will be over, right, after the financial year 26, we are going to enter into the next cycle of the next finance commission, that is 16th finance commission. Before that, Government of India wants to ensure all the beneficiaries are verified. Before that, Government of India wants to ensure all the schemes are also evaluated, by the way. And that is a precise reason. Couple of days ago, in the parliament, this information has been provided that Manrega, the evaluation of the Manrega scheme is being conducted by Niti Aayog now. So come back to the point here. Direct benefit transfer has been used to identify the beneficiary. And to this beneficiary, we ensure that the benefit will be reaching, either be it in the form of a cash or be it in the form of a kind. And when you're identifying the right beneficiary, automatically, if there are any fake beneficiaries, if there are duplicate beneficiaries, etc., all of these will be eliminated. Let me give you one example. Earlier, in case of LPG connections, one household used to have multiple LPG connections. Once DBTL was implemented, direct benefit transfer in LPG, or PAHAL initiative was implemented by the government, government was able to weed out or remove duplicate beneficiaries, fake beneficiaries, because Government of India used to provide the subsidies to the supplier. The supplier of LPG used to take the subsidy, give the cylinder at a subsidized price to beneficiaries. Now Government of India said, no, I will directly target the beneficiaries. Household is a beneficiary. Let them come out, or let them give the documents to me. I will identify you as a beneficiary, And if there are multiple connections for the same household, I will be deleting all the other connection except only one valid connection. So duplicate beneficiaries, fake beneficiaries, etc. have been weeded out, and that is exactly the information that is being provided by the minister regarding the direct benefit transfer implementation. One more very important point you need to remember regarding the DBT is that once we have implemented this concept of a direct benefit transfer, because of removal of these fake duplicate beneficiaries, etc., the government of India has been able to save huge amount of, right, subsidy. Instead of paying out higher amount of subsidy, now because of removal of the fake beneficiaries, duplicate beneficiaries, this is the subsidy savings for the government of India. So these are certain very important points in the context of DBT. Please remember them. Now, next article. Market regulator moots widening institutional access to REITs and InvITs. What is REIT? Real Estate Investment Trust. What is InvIT here? Infrastructure Investment Trust. And do not worry, the full forms of these two terminologies, either you can take it from the article itself or download the handout. In the handout, the full forms are provided. What is the basic idea for REIT and InvIT? The basic idea is simple. Just like we invest in mutual funds, where there's a pooling of funds, and these pooled funds are invested in the debt market, in the equity market to give us returns. Here also the logic remains the same, except that the structure is slightly different, and except the second point that here the pooled funds are invested in real estate projects, that is called as, right, REIT. And if these pooled funds are invested in infrastructure projects, right, other types of infrastructure projects, for example, highways, that kind of a structure is called as InvIT. That is basically called as InvIT, Infrastructure Investment Trust. Both of these kinds of structures come under the regulation of SEBI, and SEBI has been promoting these kind of structures or investment vehicles to attract investments from different types of investors, and right, which will be used to invest and develop infrastructure in India. And obviously, because we are investing, again there is a risk here. Because we are investing, there is also an expectation of returns, right, and diversification of investors, including retail investors, right. These kind of investment vehicles are available to us. Now, what is the point being discussed here? Listen to me carefully. Let's say there is a real estate investment trust. This is supposed to be listed tomorrow. Okay, this is supposed to be listed. That is, these kind of units are generally listed. These are traded in the market. Now, let's say there is a listing that is supposed to happen. Now, there are types of investors who are referred to as strategic investors. There are investors who are referred to as strategic investors. Just like in an IPO, there is a concept of anchor investors. Here, there is a strategic investor. These strategic investors are allowed to invest 5% to 25% of the total units being issued here. I repeat, 5% to 25% of the total units which are being issued, the strategic investors are allowed to invest. And another reason they are referred to as strategic investors is these are supposed to hold these units for at least 180 days. They are not supposed to, right, basically sell them. They will have an agreement with the REIT that they will be holding these units for at least 180 days after these are sold to the strategic investors. And that's a precise reason. Listen to me. Before the units are released to somebody else, the units are given to the strategic investor. And when there are more and more strategic investors, there is a higher demand for these kind of units. This will increase the confidence of the other investors, right, on these units or this REIT. And that is a precise reason this model of strategic investors is being promoted by SEBI. But there is one concern. What is the concern? SEBI simply says, right now, who is considered as a strategic investor, the definition is very narrow. I'll repeat the statement. Right now, who is considered, right, who is basically considered as, right, a strategic investor? in purchasing REITs, right, the units, the definition is very narrow. Very few of the investors are covered. For example, pension funds not covered, mutual funds not covered. So SEBI is simply saying, let me widen the definition. Let me widen the definition of the strategic investor. And once I widen the definition of a strategic investor, more and more strategic investors will be coming into play here. They'll be coming to the market. They will be right allowed to invest in the pre-issuance of the REITs and InvIT units. And when more investors are allowed to operate as strategic investors, the demand for these units further will increase. The confidence of the other investors on the issuance of these units will automatically increase. So that is basically the update that has been provided by SEBI in the context of REITs and InvITs. Now, associated with this, I've given an MCQ. Let's solve this. Consider the following statements. InvIT and REIT are regulated by RBI? No, this is incorrect. These are regulated by SEBI. As the risk is higher, the retail investors are barred from investing in these, that is InvIT and REIT. No, retail investors are not barred. In fact, SEBI says these kind of investment tools can help diversify the investments of retail investors. So both the statements are incorrect. Right option for the question will be option D, none of the above. Now, let's move on to the next one. That is basically the assignment question. Every week, if you're somebody who is following the Economy This Week initiative, you know that by the end of the session, I give you assignment where I'll give you a question. I will give you an article to read the article, write the answer, attempt the answer to these kind of questions. This is very important because you need to have mains answer writing practice. The sooner you start, the better. More you practice, the better. And that's the reason I reiterate this point. If you like this initiative, do not forget to hit the like button. And if you're yet to subscribe to our YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. So this week, what is the assignment? There was one article published in Hindustan Times. And the article is written by Mr. Shivraj Singh Chauhan. I'm pretty sure all of you heard of the name of the minister. So the minister basically says why agriculture sector is a key to building Viksit Bharat. 2047 is the target. Government of India says we want to make India a Viksit Bharat. But at the same point of time, agriculture sector is lagging behind. Majority or large chunk of workforce is present in agriculture. Contribution is lesser. There is a huge scope of promoting agriculture which will contribute to India becoming Viksit Bharat. And those arguments have been put forward in this article. Read the article, then attempt the question that has been provided on the side. And do not worry, this article you can download by downloading the PPT from my Telegram channel. So that's it from my side in this video. If you like this video, please do hit the like button. If you're yet to subscribe to our YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. Thank you. Have a great day.